It's August 1945. World War II is over. It's time to get back to normal. Over the last 6 years, people have had to scrimp, scrounge, and be resourceful to cobble together a good meal. Feeding armies at war requires sacrifice at home. But that's all over now. People can dine again. War is a scourge, but inevitably, from all conflicts come advances in technology. World War II was no different. From margarine to powdered eggs, the food industry had to imagine new ways to get G.I. Joe a full belly. And now that need was fulfilled, and it was time to turn that technology into new ways to satisfy the public. Before the war, branding was already taking off. During the war, companies that weren't producing a lot for consumers were at least keeping their brands alive in the minds of their customers by advertising their contribution to the war effort. Companies such as Coca-Cola and Hershey actually thrived with the government contracts, but now it was time to get back to the public. Time to roll up the sleeves, refine products from the war, and get them out there on the market. Fast forward 10 to 15 years, families and communities are growing, backyard barbecues are all the rage, and there are a myriad of a bunch of new foods or new takes on old dishes. Community cookbooks from the era show many different versions of the same dish, and many periodicals at the time had recipes touting the newest, latest, and greatest products from the companies that paid for the space. Hence, from one end of the country to the other, in the middle of the 20th century, there were some spectacular backyard and block parties. Such choices, casseroles such as the world had never seen, desserts that jiggled and wiggled, and some things that weren't dessert too. Cakes and pies from boxes, juice from powder, but no matter what latest and greatest thing was, you were sure to find a recipe on how to use it in a publication. So many of these mid-century recipes have made it into our lives today as cherished family recipes. Let's face it, once you hit the half-century mark, you're kinda here to stay. Every summer, all over the country, we go to friends and family gatherings. If it's anything like my neck of the woods where you are, everybody brings something. Whether it's Nancy's soup, Aunt Mary's marble cake, or Grandmom's barbecue, there's always something everyone is looking forward to. Most of these cherished recipes came from the magazine or box side panel, but they've been there all of our lives, so it's hard to imagine a time when they weren't. The next time you go to one of those potluck parties, remember most of the recipes that we cherish and love came from the greatest generation, and some of these dishes are the greatest. Today, I'm sharing with you one such recipe, Grandmom's BBQ, today on Taste Buds Through Time. Hello, welcome to Taste Buds Through Time. I am your host, Brian Parkhurst, and today we are going to do one of my favorites, Grandmom's BBQ. In this particular instance, it's my grandmother, but it could be your grandmother, it could be your grandmother, it could even be your grandmother's too. So stick with it. Maybe it'll sound familiar, or if not, maybe something brand new to you. It's a quick meal, it's a quick recipe, and it's great for short notice. If you get one of those invites in the middle of the summertime, oh, hey, I'm having a party tomorrow, you want to show up, just bring something to eat? This is the deal. It's quick, it's simple, it's filling, and people are going to love you for it. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and make Grandmom's BBQ. Now, before we get into this, I want to make it perfectly clear that none of these companies right here are endorsing me. These are just the products that I used growing up. This is what I learned this recipe with. If you have products in your neck of the woods that are similar but not quite the same, by all means, use those. This is not in concrete. You can go to the description in the video to get the full recipe for this, because when I'm doing this, it's literally just going to be grandma measurements. I'm going to throw stuff in the bowl and we're going to go from there. But for actual measurements, you can go to the description below. I'll give you the full recipe, and I assure you it is quite simple. So let us get started. First things first, I'm going to take 3 pounds of ground beef. This is a recipe for a picnic or a party, so you have a good amount of meat going in. One important thing to remember when you get your ground beef, you don't want the lean stuff. You want to get something between 80% lean, 20% fat, at the least, you want 85% lean, 15% fat. But the fat is key. Comes in later down the line. Matter of fact, it's going to come in here real soon. See, you're going to brown your ground beef, and you need some of that fat to render out in order to start cooking and frying the onions that we're going to go ahead and put in here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and let that brown up. And once it's browned up, we'll go ahead and add the onions. See all that bubbly goodness over there? That's all that fat starting to render out. And that fat is what is going to end up frying the onions. So now that the brown beef or the ground beef has started to brown and it is rendering its fat, now is the time that we're going to add the onions in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take the onions, add the onions in. Mix the onions into the frying ground beef, making sure to get the onions all good and coated with the rendered fat from the ground beef. And then by the time that the rest of the ground beef has browned, the onions will have gotten nice and translucent and started to soften up, and that's when we'll put the rest of the kids in the pool. Now you see how the onions have gotten translucent, which means they're starting to soften up. All that lovely fat is what's making the magic happen. All right, now that we're at this point, now we're going to go ahead and start putting the rest of the stuff in. Now, first things first, you always want to salt your meat. Get a good, generous portion of salt. Get some good, fresh, cracked pepper in there. Maybe a little more. I like pepper. All right. Now, with the Worcestershire, like I said, in the recipe, I will give you measurements, but to be completely honest with you, they're going to be approximations. You're going to make this yours according to your taste. But what I like to do is I like to go around 3 or 4 times just to get a little bit of that Worcestershire flavor in there. And you're going to do a little bit of mustard, just regular yellow mustard. You don't need Dijon mustard. You don't need brown mustard. Just straight yellow mustard. And you don't need a lot of it either. Maybe about a tablespoon. And then you're going to come back. The main portion of what the sauce is going to be is your ketchup. You're going to come in, put your ketchup in. Now, I'd say for 3 pounds, you're probably putting in half of a cup, maybe 3/4 of a cup of ketchup. Then for a little bit of zing, for 3 pounds of ground beef, again, you're going to adjust this depending on how many pounds you're using. But my basic recipe for a party is 3 pounds of ground beef. 8 shots of Tabasco. Excuse me, hot sauce. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then just to cut the hot sauce and some of the other stuff like the Land Parent or the Worcestershire and the mustard, just about a tablespoon of sugar. Mix these guys up. Now, as you make this recipe more, you will know if your ingredient measurements are correct by the color of the dish. And you can always come back before the end and add more. But remember, you can't take anything away. So make sure you get the taste right. Now, what you're looking for is that nice brownish orange hue. And then as it cooks, the fat is going to mix with the ketchup and it's going to give you a darker hue. And I'd bet money that before I actually transfer this to the crock pot, it's probably going to get another shot or 2 of ketchup. So I'll probably end up adding another 2 or 3 tablespoons of ketchup to this. And that's just on what I can visually see right now. But for now, we're going to go ahead and put it on low. You're going to lid it and go away for about 20 minutes. Let all the flavors marry in, get happy together. Take a taste, and then we'll transfer it. That, my friends, that's perfect. That is exactly what you're looking for. You notice how the fat
has mixed with the ketchup, and it's given it kind of given it a darker orange hue. That is the color that we're looking for. It is time to transfer. Now that we've gotten this to the perfect color, the perfect consistency, it is essentially done cooking right now. If you were having the party at your house, you would just go ahead, put the burner down on low, come back every half an hour, just give it a stir, and just keep it warm for the rest of the day for all of your party goers. But nope, say you got to go over to a friend's house, but this barbecue needs to be warm. That's what you have a crock pot for. We'll go ahead and transfer over to the crock pot. Lid it up, turn it over onto warm, and you're good to go for the rest of the day. Just unplug it, put a bungee cord over the lid, throw it in your car, and rock on over to your friend's house. And here you have it. No fuss, no muss, very little work involved, and one of the most memorable meals that you can bring to a party in the middle of the summer. Look at that. It's the ground beef and the onions that have been translucified and the other stuff in there, and it really just makes a very pleasant meal. Okay, now I've had this for so many years, I don't need to eat it, but just for the sake of you, just to make sure that what I have created will pass muster for my audience and you won't be disappointed, I'm going to go ahead and take a bite of it right here in front of you. So good. You got just a little bit of heat from the hot sauce and a little bit of sweet from the sugar and the other flavors that are just kind of melding in with the ketchup and the mustard and the Worcestershire. It really blends in to make a very, very pleasant flavor. So whether it's been in your family like mine for a half a century or more, or you just want to maybe possibly create some new culinary memories in your family, go ahead and give this a try. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. So, well, this concludes another episode. I hope you've enjoyed what I've done, and I really hope you go ahead and make this. It's great for a quick meal at night. It's great to just kind of have it sitting there. And I want you to remember, the longer it sits after being cooked, the more the flavors meld, the better the flavor gets. So you can eat it a half an hour after you make it, but I guarantee it's going to be better the next day. Thank you so very much for joining us down here at the homestead. I'll see you all next time.